Hello, friends. So I wanted to make this video because it just felt like there'd be more that needs to be said and shown than made sense to do in an email alone. So one of the things that really has been coming up a lot lately, whether it be me being immersed in smoke and drought and just like the earth like refusing to continue the way that things are going, and just really showing this like, hey, like this isn't working, right? It's trying to give us these signs that are saying this isn't how it's meant to be, this isn't how it has to go. And yet here we are again, right? Here we are again with the smoke. Here we are again with drought, and let's make it even more intense this time and make it so that, water runs out this year and things have to go in a very different direction. And there is all of this divisiveness when it comes to specifically the vaccine, right? And COVID, and how people have a very hard view on what is right. And I've been having these conversations. I've been seeing these conversations. I've been part of these conversations by just like being a witness. And I feel like there's just some things that I would love to point out from a human design perspective. And one of that being just the fact that it's been really interesting seeing how people who we really felt like in the past were very open-minded and were very much like, yeah, like make your own decision. Like this is your life. This is who you are, and you get to decide for yourself, right? And how a lot of that has shifted with the vaccine, and with people really being like, no, like you have to do this. And there just feels like there's so much fear associated with all the things going on in the world right now, whether it be flash flooding or, the earth in whatever way it's presenting to you wherever you live. And maybe you live in a place where, you're not really experiencing any of these things. So you don't really see that there's an issue. And maybe you're like me and you don't watch the news. So you really don't know there's an issue because you don't hear about these things happening in other places. But everybody is impacted by the vaccine in one way, shape, or form, whether you watch the news or not. And so I just want to share my chart, and I'll use it as kind of a dummy chart, if you will. And the first thing I just like want to point out is this center up here at the top, or the second to the top. So this, let's see, you can see hopefully this guy here. So we're 17 and 11. This center here, this is the Ajna. And when you have this center defined or colored in, which tends to be about 1 in 8 people, you have very fixed beliefs about things, right? People with a defined Ajna are not really meant to be super open-minded in this lifetime, in the sense that they know what they believe, and it's going to be very difficult for anybody to change their mind, right? And you have there's other things that go along with it, but that's just like one of them. And another thing is that people who have it defined tend to really enjoy conversing and debating and arguing with people about their like opposing beliefs. And that can give them energy. And for those of us who have this undefined or white, like I do, we are meant to be super open-minded. We tend to maybe not have opinions on things, or not super strong opinions on things. And so it's really important, because this for me was really insightful and helpful to understand that those who have this defined and are super fixed in their beliefs there's no need to try to change their mind. Let that go, because you're likely not going to change their mind, and it's not your job to, right? They have their own beliefs. And so for those of us who have it undefined, recognizing that in others, and for those who have it defined, recognize that it's not your job to convince others. You have your own beliefs, and that's amazing. And at the same time, you don't have to push them on other people. Just because you think that this thing is exactly right, and if other people don't do it, then they're dumb, they're crazy, they're trying to kill people, that's not the viewpoint everybody has. And this is where understanding what can be happening within yourself and with others can be really helpful. It may not change anything of the conversations that are happening, but if you find that you feel like you're talking with somebody who really isn't letting it go, and they just like keep wanting to talk about it, and you are someone like me who's like, I don't want to have this conversation, now you can advocate for yourself and really walk away and be like, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm not engaging in this. It's not helpful for any of us. You're likely not going to change your mind anyway. And you get to move forward with your life. So I have people in my life who definitely have this defined. And I also have strong beliefs on some things when it comes to the environment and different things, but I'm not going to like force those on other people because I think they're right. And I'm a projector. So projectors are always right. So, right. Like I'm not going to do that, because it can be such a losing game in that way. And so for me, I lead by example, and I just like do what I can. And I take it from more an educational standpoint than anything else. Like I'm never showing up to try to convince anybody. I show up to show and perhaps give a different perspective on something, and then allow people to make their own conclusions. I spent a lot of my life arguing with people because I was like, I have to prove I'm right. And that's a very projector thing. So if any of you are undefined and you're a projector and you're like, but I still feel like I'm right, and people need to, that's an indicator that you are out of alignment. If you are a projector and you are trying to get people to agree with you, and you are trying to tell people how wrong they are, that is part of our not self theme, which is what tells us that we are out of alignment, because that's not our job. Nope. Don't do it. Stop it if you're a projector. But from the fear point of view, so this is where I really wanted to spend my time, and then this kind of came up, so I want to talk about it. But fear is an interesting thing. So fear within human design comes from this center down here, which is the spleen center. Here, I'll make it bigger so there's no question. So this center right here, that's a little blurry, is the spleen center. And the spleen is where our survival instincts are. It's where our intuition, where our fears and anxieties live. Now, all of the different gates in here also represent different specific fears, innate fears and intuition. And this is where I see this center specifically having kind of a heyday right now, with all the different kinds of fear that are kind of running through our world right now. And when you have this defined or colored in like my chart is, that means that we have consistent access to our own fears and anxieties and intuition. And I keep saying intuition too, because we're not meant to have fear, but as humans, we're so good at having it and dwelling in it and just perpetuating it. And so it's recognizing that when we have this defined, that it becomes our job to really get a handle on our own fears, so we do not pass them on to others. And I say that because those who have this undefined or white, so would look like this center here, those who have this undefined are the people who are going to take in the fears and anxieties of those around them in the world and amplify them. So if you're at like a 5 on your fearful scale, and you're defined, and you are having a conversation now with somebody who's undefined, they feel that 5 fear at a 9. And if they don't understand what's happening and they're taking in your fear and amplifying it, and now they're jumping on that bandwagon, and they might be then bringing it back to you, which is then getting you all riled up. And then it becomes this just deep, massive, endless spiral of this fear just being amped up more and more. And thank you, Hawk, for our little exclamation point for that. So it's understanding that when we have this defined, it becomes our responsibility to understand our fears. My friend, understand our fears and to do our best to not pass them on to others. That doesn't mean repress them. It doesn't mean like compartmentalize them and push them down. It means becoming really clear about what those are and then taking the steps to walk through the fear anyway, because all the fear that lives here is things that will make it feel like it's the end of the world if you do it. Because again, this is where our survival instincts live. And so it's like, oh, but if I do the Facebook Live, I'm literally going to die. But it's finding that when you do it anyway, when you walk through that fear anyway, that fear dissipates almost instantly. And you get to the other side and you're like, oh my gosh, that actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like, oh, I didn't die. Like, why did I wait so long? And through doing it, you build your intuition even more. So there's always a good for walking through your fear anyway. And so it's really getting clear. And for those who have it undefined, it's becoming really clear and becoming so self-aware of when you're taking in the fear of others and amplifying it and then attaching to it and then just running wild with it. Not your job either, right? We're not meant to have fear. And so the ones that I really see to be playing the biggest role, I would say right now, is gate 57, which is the fear of the future, right? There's all of this unknown, especially when it comes to COVID and the vaccine. And it's like, I feel like there's this massive belief in the world collectively that if we don't reach a certain percentage of people immunized, and I'm sure people are going to come back and say, science says, da, 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 da. However, right, if we don't have this percentage of people vaccinated or da, 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 then it's never going to end and we're all going to die and the world is over. Right. And then instead, if we were able to live more in this, like, oh, the future is going to be amazing and this whole thing's going to pass and we're going to move forward. We've seen this happen, right? Like the Spanish influenza came through and we all were able to move forward from that anyway. Like once it kind of took its course, like that's going to happen again. And so focusing more on that future of like, we get to live and we get to have this beautiful life again, instead of being like, we're never going to get there because all these people, because then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so whenever we're living in the fear of things, we tend to attract fear to us. And when we live in the beauty and majesty and magic of things, then we tend to attract that to us. And I mean, if we got into types and stuff, we could talk more specifically about that, but understanding that you get to choose what your future can look like, feel like, sound like. And if you are focusing on that being just like a terrible place, then that's likely what you're experiencing around you now. Instead of, if you're able to picture that being this magical place, then you're likely experiencing that now. Another one that I really see is this gate 28, which is the fear of time running out, right? Feeling like there's not enough time, feeling like there's like, we're never going to make it, feeling like you have to rush and you're never going to be able to accomplish everything. And I feel like that fear is being amplified and compounded with the different lockdowns that are happening, and with all the different rollouts of different things, and with some people being like, I can't wait, and going out and doing things in big groups, and then other people judging that, and right, like all these different things happening. And so really recognizing and looking at, when your fear's coming up about things, or if you're having anxiety about stuff, asking yourself, like, what's at the core of it? Why am I having this? Why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like I need to completely hermit myself and recluse myself from everyone because I'm so scared of getting the virus or whatever, right? And if that, like, it's just asking yourself the question of really what's at the core of this, so that I can look at that and address that and ask, is that a true fear? Or is that something I meant to walk through anyway in order to get to the intuition of things, to get to the trust? Because that's what we're all meant to live in trust, not in fear. And then the last one is this gate 18, which is the fear of authority, right? And there's a lot of authority out there right now. And so this can really be like, oh my gosh, I have to be a good citizen. I have to be a good daughter. I have to be a good CEO. I have to be a good mom, dad, whatever, partner. And in that, whatever that good means to you, it might be like, oh, a good daughter would go get the vaccine because everybody else in their family has it. And so I like feel like like that person needs to go get it too. Right. Or as a CEO, I feel like I have to make it mandated that everybody has it so that people feel safe. And I'm not saying any of these things are wrong. I'm just saying recognize where that fear is coming from, and then looking at how valid it is, and where did that belief come from fear itself? And that's what created the belief, or did it come from something else that's like that feels really true for you? And this is where awareness comes in for everything. It's all about building awareness and just going through life and taking note of things and being like, oh, it's interesting that my body feels like it's saying yes to this thing, but my logic's saying no. So I'm not going to do it. And then having the awareness of like, well, how does it go when you do it? Does it feel good? Does it flow? Do you feel frustrated? And just having that awareness and be like, oh, maybe next time I'm going to follow what my body says versus what my logic says, because last time it didn't actually turn out as well as I thought it would. So maybe I'll do it this way this time and see what happens, right? That's what it's all about. It's just all about building that awareness in order to build that trust. And so I know for me, of all the three fears that we really talked about, fear of the future and fear of authority are very much at the core of me. And I know where I make decisions based off of that fear. And it's okay. I'm able to own that, and I'm able to build my trust and conviction in what's true for me, so that next time I'm able to make a different decision, a decision that feels more in alignment with who I am versus what I feel like I should do or I'm supposed to do, or, all the conditioning that's around us. So I'm going to leave it there because I could talk about this for so long, but I don't want to make this too long for anybody to watch. But just recognizing kind of what's going on in your own self, right? Whether it comes to your beliefs on things, whether it comes to how fear and anxiety are rearing its ugly head, if at all, in your life. And also starting to have the awareness around you, right? When you're having conversations with people and they feel like, and maybe you feel like they're like goading you and they're like really trying to like maybe push your buttons or get you to talk about something, and you're like, I don't really want to talk about it. You can now think back to this conversation and be like, oh, maybe they have a defined ajna and this is giving them energy, and it's not going to give me any energy, and it's just going to make us all upset about all the things. So I'm just actually going to walk away. I'm not going to engage, and I'm going to walk away. And projectors, we have to recognize when we are engaging in conversations based off of us feeling like we need to be recognized that we are right, and where we are engaging because it feels good and we're detached from the conversation, and whether they believe us or not, or recognize us as right or not, that's not going to dictate the rest of the way that you feel for the rest of the day. Right. And then just looking at how you're making decisions, right? Is it from an aligned place or is it from a fearful place? And just having that awareness so that you're able to make more informed decisions and informed actions in your life based off of what's actually true for you and potentially what's true for the people around you. So hopefully this was helpful. And if you guys have any questions, I'll let me know, and I'll talk to you guys soon.